battling out all weekend. Christian Moreno, top 32 Knoxville Regional, top 32 Milwaukee Regional. Both this year, last season of course, but pretty consistent run there. Definitely the highest finish placing so far playing that Lugia V-Star Archeops, the single strike variant like you were saying.
Yeah, and what a great season to start off, to get your big placement when we have this humongous increase of the prize pool. And then of course we have JW, a veteran I would say at this point, has some pretty good results all the way back to 2014, so almost 10 years now since he won that Fort Wayne Regional Championships, and then most recently getting top 4 at Peoria, and now back for another top 4 here in Toronto.
Technically back-to-back top 4s for JW here because he did not play in Sacramento, and doing it with the same deck, Maridon EX with that Flappy.
Yeah, pretty fantastic. Doing pretty well, and I think this shows how with such a diverse format, it's generally pick your favorite deck. Yeah, pick your favorite deck, stick with it, play it well, and you'll be able to accomplish great things as JW is doing. We did see him earlier on stream playing against that Snorlax and what seemed to be a certain defeat from what we were seeing, but then we had that turn 1 KO on the Pidgeot V and things suddenly changed around for him.
Both players getting those prizes laid out. Archeops and a single strike energy to go along with the gift energy. Oh, double Archeops with a couple supporters as well. Path to the Peak for Seal Stone, a couple Pokemon energy. Nothing too bad from JW's side. I guess the Path to the Peak.
Yeah, the Path to the Peak could be a card that you wish you had access more to. As long as you find one in the early game, that's the one you need, right? If you can delay the Lugia V-Star from using its ability to get those Archeops into play, that's going to be good enough. Afterwards, stopping Luminion can be significant, but it's less so than that very first early Path to the Peak. And then the 2 Archeops looks like that would be less than ideal, but thanks to Professor Burnett and thanks to how the deck is designed to discard them, sometimes that's actually a blessing, because once you have your 2 Archeops down, you don't care for the other 2, right? So if they're priced, then that does mean that you have other better cards not priced.
That is true, especially with every energy counting for your future attacks, trying to save those resources as much as possible. Now it's going to be interesting to see who actually wins the flip and gets to go first. JW is in the position where I think it really doesn't matter. Like, it's good going first, but if you go second, you have an opportunity to take a knockout on a lone Lugia.
Indeed, especially because Lugia without playing a supporter can be a little underwhelming, right? We've seen a lot of draw pass with one basic Pokemon, so yeah. Now, seeing the deck list here, JW off to a very awkward start, not getting that Maridon down, powering up Raichu with that first attack fast charge, and Christian is playing a couple of fighting type Pokemon, not just the Stonejourner, but also has that 1/1 single strike Urshifu VMAX line, which could prove to be very problematic for JW.
And don't worry, JW is not cheating. He can use this attack as long as you go first. Able to search your deck for lightning energy and attach it to the Raichu V. Now getting an opportunity to figure out what cards are prized, and we'll see, it's not too bad. I guess the biggest thing is that Zapdos being prized.
Yeah,
Maridon
Zapdos.
EX does 220 damage, 230 with the Zapdos against Tyranitar V. That's not going to be available to him.
Yeah, that lightning symbol being very crucial, as you point out, Jeremy. Great to be able to knock out a Tyranitar V with Maridon or a fully powered up Raikou. But we're going to lead with a Luminion, search out the deck, figure out the prize cards. Definitely a sigh of relief when you see none of your fighting type Pokemon are priced. And we'll have to see how Christian tries to establish his board. His priority definitely is a second Lugia V. That has a little bit of a higher priority than using Professor Burnett here, for example. That would be ideal to discard the Arceus, but your Lugia is immediately threatened, and you don't even have a way to count on retreating it. So it's all gonna come down on this Iono.
Yeah, this is an awkward hand from Christian here. I believe it was a couple of boss's orders of V-Guard energy, gift energy. No real play for it, so you have to Iono here. You cannot Professor's Research this hand away. And because of that, you're going to have to rely off these 6 cards, hope to find another Lugia V, and then find the way to get the Burnett next turn and a Lugia V-Star. Attaching the V-Guard energy, though, is going to help a little bit with this Raichu V. It's going to force another energy discard, at least, from JW side of things.
Now, fun fact, Christian did not prize any of his outs, right? So he has maximum possibilities of finding an extra Lugia V here, and that's exactly what he is able to find. And also gets to read the wind of an Archeop, so off to the races here. Will be losing this prize exchange initially, but at least he got that second Lugia V down.
Raikou V is the draw for JW here. A ton of energy in hand, has an energy or electric generator to maybe power up this Raikou V, but with 5 energy already being used up, 2 on the active, 3 in the hand, still hits the 2 energy off the electric generator.
The double, there was definitely way lower odds than you'd expect initially. Starting off the game with 2 energy in play, and as you mentioned, a bunch of them in the hand, but still finding them, yeah, and that's what electric generator can do for you with this deck. So now Raikou is an option, a much more stable one than Raichu, as long as the bench gets filled. However, I don't see any way to do that.
No Miraidon EX to use that tandem unit just yet. And you definitely don't want to retreat here. I guess you have the boss's orders in hand, but you're only doing 100 damage, so 200 damage. That's not going to be enough to take the knockout on the Lugia V. Do you boss's orders Luminion take the knockout with the Raikou?
I honestly prefer to just deal with the Lugia right here. It does require 3 energies to be discarded instead of just 2 because of the V-Guard energy. That 2 energy discard would equate to 210 damage despite the weakness. So difficult decision, but you definitely have spare energies, right? So JW doing the maths perfectly well there and making sure that he has the knockout on this Lugia V to start us off, but very, very frail setup. Now he will unlock a Miraidon and an Iono off the prize cards. Definitely a big sigh of relief there from him.
Very good cards from the prize cards for JW, but Christian might have something to say about it. I believe there's another Iono in hand, although there is a Luminion and an Ultra Ball, so you can Ultra Ball for the Lugia V-Star, Luminion for Professor Burnett. Go ahead and get that last Archeops in the discard, and from there you can Summoning Star and get things rolling. Raichu V does have 200 HP, so even with a double turbo, that Lugia V-Star can take a knockout.
Yeah, and Christian can even take it a step further, doing all of that. Oh, actually the Collapse Stadium prevents it. I was thinking he could Burnett and bench the Tyranitar and power that up and take a knockout with that, because the return KO would basically be impossible. But that Collapse Stadium that JW played is actually coming into play here, preventing Christian from doing that full bench play.
Having the 2 Luminion V down this early against a deck that preys off of Lightning weakness definitely could be some trouble, but getting both those Archeops set up and ready to go, getting the knockout, you have to start somewhere.
Indeed, so Lugia will be the attacker of choice this turn, but of course it is weak to Lightning, and now that Christian will have a bench full of his own, JW will be able to get that return KO with the Raikou, and then combine that with an Iono. JW will be essentially 1 boss away from being able to win this game by knocking out a Luminion, so definitely a precarious situation.
Speaking of 1 boss, he almost discarded 2 off his Ultra Ball, decided to keep the 1 and discarded the Urn of Vitality instead. That means you have an out with that boss's orders, and there's that Summoning Star. Double Archeops, who needs it when they're in the prize cards? Like you said, now you're just playing with a better deck.
Yeah, exactly. Those 2 Archeopses are as useful as a Battle VIP pass is on turn 2 and beyond. Now we're going to see the power up. The V-Guard damage should not matter as long as JW is able to use Tandem Unit, which he did free up the Miraidon from the prize card. So we're going to see a 2-prize turn for Christian, and then JW has a very easy turn. And all he needs to do is make sure that he's as ready as he can to have a follow-up to the Raikou itself.
Getting the gift energy is definitely going to be very important on that Lugia V-Star to be able to draw some more cards after a knockout. And with both of those Primal Turbos used up, attachment for the turn, there's that Tempest Dive, taking the knockout and getting rid of that Collapse Stadium for the future. No longer have to worry about bench space here. And JW draws another Lightning Energy, but finally has that Miraidon EX to tandem unit that bench.
Yep, tandem unit to fill up that bench gonna be very, very important. Will allow him to stabilize a little bit of the Iono he has. You're looking to draw into possibly the Bravery Charm, possibly the Flaffy to get more energy into play, possibly an Electric Generator. However, you will be putting 2 of your energies at the very bottom of the deck, so Electric Generator odds not the greatest at this point in time. The V-Guard energy probably won't factor into the maths due to weakness, but Christian has essentially one option. He's hoping to Iono, and he's hoping to find Stonejourner to respond to whatever JW attacks with this turn, which I presume will be the Raikou.
Tandem unit does fetch out a second Mareep, and that Flying Pikachu V, one of the best pivot options for a deck like this Miraidon EX, having that free retreat, and not actually weak to fighting.
Now, I am a little bit puzzled why you wouldn't get another Miraidon and then tandem unit for whatever else you wanted. There's definitely space for it right here. So I'm not exactly sure, like, why not thin your deck further? You need one more attack, right? So drawing a Miraidon, it's not useful for you. What you need are the Flaffies, the Electric Generators, the Energies, and possibly a Boss's Hoarders to chase down a 2-price Pokemon.
Electric Generator grabs 1 energy, so not the full power, but with 2 on the bottom, you have to kind of expect that. Attaches it to that Miraidon EX to try to get that powered up for the following turns. Still has access to Fleet-Footed.
Yep, Fleet-Footed gonna be pretty nice, especially if you want to establish the Flaffy this turn, already holding the Boss's Hoarders, so
such an awkward hand here, though. Ultra Ball is going to have to discard Professor's Research and a Judge just to get that Flaffy out so you can Dynamotor, but you kind of have to, or else you're not really going to be able to attack next turn.
Yeah.
With a Boss's Orders, you'd be forced to use one of those draw supporters instead.
Yeah, but I mean, after you take this knockout, you're down to 2 prizes, right? Dynamotor onto the Miraidon, Boss KO that Luminion, and that's it. So yes, it sucks to discard draw supporters sometimes, but when you have the game-winning card in your hand, you're pretty happy about it.
Whoa, that's the wrong Mareep. That Mareep came into play this turn.
Technically.
There we go. There we go. Got to keep things clean.
Yeah, we did have a debacle over this, right, in Sacramento with Henry Brand evolving the wrong Kirlia. So it's important to play as cleanly, as neatly as possible. And then with that Force Seal Stone, JW has the game-winning combo in hand. It's up to Christian to respond with an Iono and a Stonejourner to try and protect from this.
Does look like there's a few resources in hand to be available. I think Ultra Ball, Mezagoza, so definitely a guaranteed way to get a Pokemon out. Maybe not the Ultra Ball.
I think the only path to victory here is, there's the Ultra Ball, needs to be Stonejourner, and Stonejourner needs to deal with that Raikou, and then it's going to come down to the Boss's Orders. Now, one important thing to note is there an Iono or not? There is not, I don't think. So it's just a matter of time.
No Iono means that it is most likely going to be a Professor's Research, but we know that Boss's Orders is in hand for JW along with that Forest Seal Stone. So a pretty quick one here for our game 1, but that is usually what happens between Miraidon and Lugia. As soon as you throw in weakness, it's really hard to deal with.
Yeah, and it all comes down to that turn 1 KO, right? It was costly. It costed JW 3 energies. His start was awkward, but starting Lugia actually really sucks in this matchup in particular, as we're going to see this Stonejourner take down Raikou. We're going to see the Flying Pikachu come up, Dynamotor onto the Miraidon, and then Miraidon Boss KO the Luminion next turn.
Second Primal Turbo here, getting that 3rd energy on the Stonejourner for the Giga Hammer.
Now, if you're a Christian, you definitely, you cannot know what your opponent's hand is, right? You know they did discard Research and Judge, which is sometimes indicative that they have another Research, right, in their hand, or it could be the boss. But he's definitely doing all the correct moves and choices in order to make sure that he's ready to go and he has maximum chances of return KOing and winning the game next turn. Now, unfortunately for him, he had to place down both Luminion down. If there was only one Luminion, he was able to get rid of it with that collapsed stadium. We'd be talking about a completely different game here, maybe.
Game 2, maybe.
Yep. There's the Flying Pikachu here. Pretty simple steps here for JW to follow to be up 1-0 in this top 4 match.
No missequencing this turn. Dynamotor attaches that energy, boss's orders, and there is the concession. JW Kriewall up 1-0. He's on a mission, trying to make to that finals.
One up here in this series. Of course, Lugia has the weakness advantage with the fighting type Pokemon, but those are not going to be useful enough until you have everything ready to go. Whereas Miraidon, we just saw how incredibly aggressive and fast it can be. And even though JW had essentially an attach power-up past turn, right? Nothing too big, no turn 1 Miraidon, no deck thinning, no nothing. That was good enough.
So here's that turn 2 after the fast charge, taking the big KO on that Lugia V with the V-Guard energy, putting him far ahead here. And then just leaving Christian with that lone Lugia V, but still able to get that summoning star, get everything out. But JW setting up a checkmate scenario with his hand. As long as there was no disruption, Dynamotor, boss's orders, taking the KO. And that replay was basically as fast as that game 1.
Indeed. A lot of time left to go in this round. And I wonder who...
oh no, I've seen this before.
Oh no, double Marine. Double turbo is also less than ideal, because if you start Lugia, you want to retreat that immediately into a single prizer. The ideal scenario for Christian is starting with a single prize Pokemon, but as we see, he let JW go first this time around and hoping to have a more stable setup. But if you lose those 2 prizes immediately, that's where the problem lies for Lugia.
I have also seen this before too. Such an awkward squawk and seize here for JW, discarding the 2 Judge in the deck along with an escape rope and that Professor's Research. Couple lightning energy, double electric generator, path to the peak found here, but no way to get Miraidon out until the next turn with that Arven.
That's a lot of supporters gone for JW, meaning a late game Iono could be very problematic as long as the Force Seal Stone is not in play. So definitely troublesome. That path to a peak, potentially very useful here if he wanted to delay Christian. However, his setup is just not good enough at this point to even consider doing that. The Zapdos can take care of the Lugia next turn if he needs to. He might want to be a little bit more conservative, wait, hold on with the Arven and see what happens. I generally would have preferred to see the attachment on the Squawk, because that gives you all the flexibility in the world next turn. If you're not gonna commit fully to the Zapdos, attach to the active, and then you have easy retreat into whatever it is you need next turn.
I was thinking the exact same thing. Here is Capturing Aroma, gets the tails. This will be able to find another Lugia V if Christian needs to. Other than that, Luminion V could be the option, but there you go. 2 Lugia Vs down. That means you're going to try to guarantee that Summoning Star for the next turn. I know there's Professor Burnett in hand for Christian, so you can go ahead and play that, get those Archeops discarded right away.
Yeah, raw Professor Burnett in your hand is always a fantastic draw. No need to expose that Luminion, which, as we saw, ended up being Christian's demise. If he had not needed to bench both of those to get into the game, as we were seeing just now, maybe we could have seen a whole different game.
Now there is only 3 outs to the path to the peak in Christian's deck. 2 Collapse Stadium, 1 Mezagoza. Does not have either of those in hand just yet, so plays that V-Guard energy. We're going to see her read the Wind most likely, benching that Yveltal first. There's that Read the Wind, discarding the 3rd Archeops, draw 3 cards, hoping to find a Stadium for the next turn. Already has Ultra Ball in hand. Speaking of Ultra Ball, JW finds one off the top. Can't really discard those cards though.
Yeah, all those cards are pretty good at this point in time, and now it seems that that Force Seal Stone is actually playing against JW, as Christian did not counter it, and JW can get a Miraidon, but it cannot tandem unit because of the path to a peak. Could fetch a Nest Ball for a Raikou instead, try to attack that way. Can just directly power up the Zapdos by getting the switch card, as we are seeing. However, very, very underwhelming start whiffing that Miraidon. And now that path, I feel like it's a good play, right? It can delay Lugia, but it's more important on the second turn, and you have to weigh the cost that comes with using it yourself and how much you need to tandem unit to have full board. If you play the path this turn, it's still almost as good, right? Because you still get to delay potentially the Lugia V-Star ability. However, you don't delay yourself.
1 energy off this electric generator. That's going to allow JW to attack with an energy attachment for turn and that switch card. And it will be enough to take the knockout on Lugia V. It's not a Pokemon V, so that V-Guard energy does not reduce any damage. But again, there's just cards in your hand that you do not want to discard. And I think the reason for the path is usually for Lumineon V on that first turn.
Of course.
Over something like trying to prevent a Summoning Star. But I do agree with you. With the way JW's hand was shaping up, you really need to tandem unit here, especially with the double generator. But there is that third lightning energy on Zapdos. Switch cart. It took a while, but we're finally seeing Zapdos attack.
Finally, I finally get to see JW utilize Zapdos to attack now. Christian has not found a stadium yet, however, and I believe his only draw supporter might be Iono, which is definitely not the card you want to play when you're seeing how slow of a turn JW is having now. Important to note, Christian does not have Pumpkaboo, right? And only has 3 stadiums. So that path to peak might actually put in a lot of work. There's no, a lot of respect to path to peak in Christian's list, cutting a few corners to be able to fit that single strike Urshifu VMAX line into the deck, but that could prove to be a little bit costly at this point in time.
All right, Ultra Ball fetches that Lugia V-Star. We know there's an Iono in hand, most likely going to be played.
Are you good? Are you good in here? Yeah.
All right, so players interacting a little bit, making sure decks are shuffled well. And I think we're having a small pause for some reason. We'll have to see and check what is happening. The Yveltal, if a stadium is found, will be able to deal with this Zapdos. I don't believe there's any single strike energies in the prizes, so we'll be able to single strike Wings to take this return KO if a stadium is found. I cannot emphasize enough how much a stadium needs to be found in order for Christian to do anything at all.
Yeah, it's about, what, 40, 45 cards in the deck, 3 outs. Don't believe any of them are prized, just those double turbo energies.
We do have a little bit of a pause. I'm not sure what is going on. We're gonna get some information to you all as soon as we can. We'll have to see. Yeah, I mean, it's all gonna come down to this Iono, right? No stadiums prize, so maximum chances to find it, but with only 3 outs, I don't fancy that. I don't fancy the chance of finding 1 stadium off of 6 cards. Haven't thinned the deck too much either.
Listen, you gotta believe. All right, Pablo.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta believe.
Here we're seeing a shuffle of the deck from JW here, and I think that was it, just no shuffle off of the electric generator maybe.
All right.
There we go, Iono.
Iono, last card, no. No stadium, and now Yveltal is weak to lightning, so that means JW will be up 3 prizes before Christian even gets to do anything at all. Now, that Iono didn't do a lot of help for JW. Those early on supporters that were discarded ended up being, or we see now the lack of supporters, so not a fantastic turn. The path to peak still getting a little bit in the way, but JW did find a bunch of basic Pokemon here.
It does look like they get a 3-minute extension for figuring out the shuffle after electric generators, so a little bit more time added off the clock, but with how fast Game 1 finished, I'm sure it's not going to matter here. Miraidon EX and Raikou V on the bench now for JW. Attach an energy to that Raikou V, get it powered up for next turn, hopefully. And like you were saying, that hand, not very good right now. Ultra Ball, Raikou, taking the knockout with Electro Ball. He's going to find the Flaffy most likely.
Yeah, JW had not realized that the Yveltal was weak. You see how very, this interaction doesn't come up very often. And we're going to see the Urshifu getting promoted. Urshifu VMAX can evolve and start doing damage, but because Zapdos has, oh, it does not have resistance actually. Thought for a second it had fighting resistance.
You would think with it being a bird and all.
Yeah, you would think.
but the balloons for Flying Pikachu help it with its resistance instead. Ultra Ball does find that Single Strike Urshifu VMAX, and it's going to be able to beat down for not the KO, right? Minus 20 from the double turbo, plus 20 from the Single Strike Energy. It's 10 short. Really going to need to find the stadium yet again here.
Research does not immediately play down the stadium, so it looks like beatdown for 100. It's not a KO, I don't believe.
Oh, no, I think it's weak to fighting.
Oh, it's weak to fighting?
Yeah, it's weak to fighting.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I could have sworn it was weak to lightning.
Yes, weak to fighting. All right, we're okay here.
My bad. Definitely a KO. Very clean KO. Very good KO.
JW brings up that Squawkabilly EX. With an energy, it's a way to power up some Pokemon here, but no energy in sight for JW. Just has Ultra Ball, discards 2 Pokemon, a Raikou V and Miraidon EX. It's going to eye down that Mareep, maybe that Flying Pikachu V, maybe that Mew. But again, all these don't really do too much here. Mareep with the Flaffy in hand will be good for next turn, but you still need a pivot to use that Dynamotor effectively.
Yeah, and JW's hand right now is really not good at all. And this turn 1 path that he played ended up almost working against him, right? Christian has now stabilized. He is able to attach another energy. Will be able to do a little bit of damage to Squawkabilly. What are we watching, Jeremy?
80 damage. I don't know how it went from 90 to there, but... Oh, no, the resistance.
7.
Right. Yeah.
30
30
damage.
It's crazy. Wow, drew the Flying Pikachu for the turn, so has a pivot for the following turn, but is really just going to have to Dynamotor and pass here. Oh I love this play. I'm a fan of this play.
We're about to see some 0 damage Thunder Shocks because of the V-Guard energy. This is crazy to see. JW with a 0 card hand. Christian in a very interesting position will now be taking 2 prizes. If he had a boss's orders and he could take down that Flaffy, that would be fantastic. Even preemptively KOing the Flying Pikachu could also be good. We'll have to see.
Oh, 100,
They're trying to get the math right. They already had it right. Here is the 3rd Professor's Research in a row. Can we find a stadium for this Summoning Star?
I mean, at this point, you don't even want to give JW the extra card with Fleet-Footed, I feel. So even if you get a path, I don't think you need to.
And with that Single Strike energy, does get to the appropriate 90 damage to take the knockout on the Squawkabilly. So down to 3 prizes for Christian, tied up the game here.
And we're about to see a Thunder Shock in top 4. What is happening?
I mean, it's a lot better than my Thunder Shock in round 9, I'll tell you that much. But JW is going to have to do it for the stream.
I mean,
hit this heads.
At this point in time, yeah, you need to paralyze. You need to buy yourself a turn. This flip is huge.
Just has been drawing Pokemon nonstop. Thundershock heads? No.
Fail. 0 damage because of the V-Guard energy. Christian in a commanding position here. Boss's orders onto the scoop. What?
Wow.
The turn 1 path working against JW. What if you hold it on turn 1? Yeah, I know you want to stop Luminion, but are you trying to beat your opponent by making them dead draw? Or you encourage the Luminion, right? Go ahead and bench that. That's an easy 2-prize target. Later down the line, with the Arven in your hand, you get a guaranteed full setup. We'll have to see what happens in Game 3, but I can't believe that we just saw Lugia win without Summoning Star.
Yeah, that was more of a single strike Urshifu VMAX deck, manually attaching energies for 4 turns. And here you see just not really much going on for JW. Has drawn a ton of Pokemon throughout that game too. Even has a Raichu V to go along with it. And then, of course, the big hope, the big Thunder Shock from Flying Pikachu V. But unfortunately hits that Tails, and a boss's orders off the top of the deck for Christian will prompt that quick concession from JW after going to be taking out that Raikou V, and Christian showing he had the Clap Stadium.
Yeah, no need to counter the stadium, no need for Summoning Star when you have the behemoth that is single strike Urshifu VMAX. And that's exactly what Christian would love to do. Yeah, I mean, if you could choose to power that up instead of playing down the two price liabilities that are the Lightning Weak Lugias, you would choose to do that. But so far so good, interesting couple of games. And we're about to see who moves on to the finals here at Toronto.
Zapdos and the Path to the Peak in the prizes yet again. Meanwhile, nothing too bad for Christian there. JW is going to start things off. Going first, having that Flying Pikachu V in the active spot, along with that Miraidon EX. You can tandem unit for these two Pokemon.
All right, now this is a dream start for Christian. He started a single prize Pokemon, right? Weak to Lightning, doesn't matter, it's not Stonejourner, right? You can definitely afford to lose this Yveltal, so JW setting up here finally finds a Miraidon in turn 1 that he wasn't able to find that in game 1 or 2. Now he does, but now Christian with a much, much better start here.
Looking at all the Pokemon in the deck right now. Is this a point where you feel it's good to grab a second Miraidon EX and then tandem unit again, kind of fill your bench up?
Absolutely. I was very surprised that didn't happen in game 1. I definitely want to see that happen here in game 2. You want to thin your deck. It's not about the liabilities that you have in play. You're always going to have two price liabilities, especially with that 190 HP Flying Pikachu V. What you need to do is thin your deck, maximize those electric generators, and be able to hit those boss's orders at the right time.
Now here's always the option I hate. You have a Path to the Peak in hand and an Ultra Ball to go find that Squawkabilly EX. Is it worth it to Squawk and Seize, get rid of that Path to the Peak, or forego that, have a weaker hand, but get that path into play maybe this turn or the next turn?
I definitely think it completely depends on what the rest of your hand looks like. If you have a Research follow-up, an Iono follow-up, or a Judge, I feel like you can probably let go of that. However, if your hand is dead, it's what you have to do, right? Path is fantastic, but you want to have this initiative. Now, I am definitely surprised that we're not seeing that Miraidon into Miraidon. I really wish if JW ends up winning, I hope Juancho asks him about that, because I am not understanding the reasoning to that, especially when your hand is not so great.
Yeah, and having that Ultra Ball as the only accessibility to find something to kind of draw out of this hand, but does have the Path to the Peak there, hoping that Christian's just going to bump it anyway. And now it's up to Christian to find a Lugia V, maybe a second one, and get things rolling here, starting off with the Capturing Aroma.
Big flip here, needs a Tails to establish a Lugia.
Looks like a 3.
Yep, we get that Tails pretty good. Yeah, starting off with a Lugia does need to be extra safe, does not know what sort of hand JW has, so definitely important to establish that second Lugia in case there is an attach plus boss KO. You still have the other one to summoning V-Star with. Now, I couldn't tell what else was in the hand. It's always important to go with the uncertain cards, such as Capturing Aroma, and then once you figure out what you can or cannot grab, then you continue to make the rest of your plan.
We call that sequencing, folks. And Lugia is one of the best decks to try to figure out the perfect sequencing for your games, especially up against a tough matchup in this Miraidon EX and that Lightning weakness.
Now, Radiance Arena as a way to protect from an escape rope play. We also see Collapse Stadium and Iono.
This is actually just going to help JW out so much. Get those cards on the bottom of the deck. You don't need them, really. I guess the Flaffy was the only good card here. Bumping that path is going to help, at least with fleet-footed, maybe another tandem unit.
Does find the second Lugia V, though, which is pretty great. However, there are 0 Archeops in the discard pile, which could be huge. Christian was holding the Professor Burnett in their hand, but chose to play it extra safe right there. And we'll have to see what ends up happening here. But getting 2 Archeops in the discard pile plus Lugia V-Star off of what Christian drew might not exactly be easy or straightforward. Now, JW with not a great hand, though.
Yeah, still not looking that great. Bravery Charm on the Raikou V. does help it against a Lugia V-Star potentially attacking with Tempest Dive.
Oh, never mind. I see a Boss's Order is actually pretty decent hand. No draw supporter, can fleet-footed, can establish a Flaffy as well, can tandem unit if necessary to further thin the deck. Yeah, to make sure that you get maximum value out of that fleet-footed.
Well, here's that Ultra Ball finding the Flaffy that was put to the bottom with the Iono. This will allow you to Dynamotor, although I don't believe there's any Lightning in the discard just yet.
No Lightning in the discard. That Bravery Charm is going to be Christian's biggest hurdle at this point in time, especially if he's able to pull off everything, right? The Summoning Star, establish the Stonejourner, or rather only with the Stonejourner he'd be able to respond. But even getting the Stonejourner out seems a little problematic because his hand is not too great.
Now deciding what to bring up. That Yveltal does have a hefty 2 retreat cost. And if you bring up that Lugia V, you're putting it in danger for sure against that Raikou V with that Bravery Charm. Draw for the turn. Seems like an Ultra Ball for Christian.
Yeah, and I do believe there's a Professor's Research, so at least one Arceus getting discarded, but the Urshifu VMAX hitting the discard pile as well, which obviously we saw take down JW in this previous match. And there we see the straight up Research, not even bothering with an attachment. This Research has to be really big here.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts that you need to find Ultra Ball and Archeops, and then being able to grab that Lugia V-Star. But even from there, the bench space is going to be a liability. Collapse Stadium now limiting Christian, where if he does get 2 Archeops, won't be able to play anything else down like that Stonejourner.
There is an Arceus and there is a Capturing Aroma, but no way to discard that Arceus. And now it's tails when you actually probably wanted heads. I mean, you can establish another Lugia V this time around. Not exactly sure. I think you have to, right, in case there's another Boss's Orders in play. You do know JW's hand is actually pretty small. And if JW takes down this Yveltal, the prize map is there, right? Christian could use Stonejourner to take 2 prizes, but off of 2 attacks, if JW is able to muster 2 attacks, Christian will not have another single prize Pokemon to take down a 2 prize Pokemon of JW's.
Debating about the basic Pokemon to find here off of Capturing Aroma. Does go ahead and decide that second Lugia V. The biggest thing now is to fade something like that Boss's Orders from JW's side of things. He's already played 1. Does have a total of 3 in the list.
Now another issue for Christian will be a Path to Peak, and grabbing the Lugia but not benching it. I feel like if already gone for it, not committing to it is interesting.
Iono off the top for JW does open up the hand a little bit. Starts with the fleet-footed. Oh, wow. Okay. Forest Sealstone off the top. You can attach that to the Flying Pikachu V and Star Alchemy. 4 Boss's Orders take a knockout on the Lugia V on the bench.
That is incredible. What a fleet-footed we just saw. Yeah, almost a top deck basically, right? Incredible.
Oh yeah, you saw it on the screen, top deck.
And he also has the path in case that was necessary, but Christian not benching that second Lugia. I mean, his chances were already very, very slim, I want to say, after whiffing this turn. But now, if that Lugia V goes down, you have no follow-up. Yeah, your Urshifu VMAX is even priced, so you can't even do 200 damage to the Raikou at this point.
No, it's not even priced. He discarded it.
I meant discarded.
A turn ago, yeah.
Discarded.
And with that, there's no threat of that single strike Urshifu V to be able to take a big knockout. I feel like this is just an automatic play to do here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what we're going to see. There's not a lot of value in taking down this Yveltal. JW must be just trying to make sure that he's not missing out on anything. Christian even searched for the second Lugia, but then chose not to bench it. I feel like maybe there was some possibility if he sets up the Lugia and then attacks with Tyranitar once and that somehow survives a hit. If there's no Zapdos in play, which we do see that is priced. So I don't know. Yeah, not benching that Lugia. I think Christian's gonna immediately regret it once he sees this boss's orders. Yep, there we go.
There is the concession. JW Kriewall moving on to the finals to meet either Demetrius or Azul, and trying to avenge that loss in Peoria.
Yep, making it one step further. Now he's in the finals, waiting to see who he gets to play, either Gardevoir, potentially a decent matchup, or Charizard, an arguably horrible matchup. We'll have to see who his opponent is in the finals.
Yeah, we'll also have to see what that chopping motion means. If it's chopping up the chops, or well, I guess we'll find out soon enough. But congratulations to Christian on making it to top 4. One great run throughout this entire weekend, going through a ton of people in this competition. But when you're a Lugia up against a Miraidon, I feel like it's only a matter of time.
Definitely had all the right tools in his deck, but this KO off the Raichu, JW almost playing a non-Miraidon Lightning deck, it felt, on games 1 and games 2. Miraidon just did not show up in the beginning, did not do much. However, taking 2 prizes, yeah, you take 2 prizes on your second turn, you get ahead. That's usually a big deal because the single strike Lugia deck doesn't play enough single prize Pokemon to deal with everything.
And here is that end of the game 1. Boss's orders up the Lumineon, taking the knockout, chopping up those chops. And then game 2, starting off a little awkward here, but still able to get the KO on the Lugia V on JW's second turn with that Zapdos and Electro Ball.
Yeah, I finally saw Zapdos take not only a Lugia, but also an Yveltal. However, that was not enough, as JW's own path to the peak prevented him from establishing a full board, and thus allowed Christian to win without using Summoning Star. Not something that you're gonna commonly see when you're playing against Lugia.
Squawkabilly putting in a little bit of work with that resistance, trying to buy JW as much time as possible. But like you were saying, that path to the peak really stymied JW's setup, and with just 4 manual attachments, this single strike Urshifu VMAX was clearing up the board for Christian here, trying to hit that Thundershock heads, but JW not able to accomplish that. And with the boss's orders, it sends it to a game 3.
And then game 3, everything was working out well for both players. Both players set up decently, but then Christian was not able to get the full setup of the Iono. And you see the first boss's order taking down the first Lugia, following up not much.
And taking the knockout there, and then drawing that Forest Seal Stone off the Lightning, or off the Fleet-Footed, able to take that boss's orders for the KO, no longer having Lugia VM play, and JW sitting in the finals, waiting to face either Gardevoir or Charizard EX.
Now, to be fair, benching that second Lugia V was no guarantee of anything, right? It was still a huge mountain to climb for Christian, just because there were so many prizes taken at that point. But if you wanted to give yourself a small chance, I think benching a Lugia V would have been ideal. Yeah, but off the Fleet-Footed, right? Off the Fleet-Footed, you can see how one card, right? One card